We just got back from seeing The Batman. The new Batman film just came out.
Actually, it didn't.
It didn't just come out. We were lucky enough to get invited by Warner Bros. To go to an early screening of this movie. And so, here is our kind of non-spoiler first thoughts and reactions of this movie. We'll keep it brief. And, give you guys what we think about it. This is a very unique Batman movie, I would say.
Yep. Can I say, I didn't know anything going into this. I don't know how much you knew. I saw, like, 2 trailers. I know that, like, Robert Pattinson, I know that, like, Zoe Kravitz was in it, and then I knew the Riddler was a bad guy, and I think I knew the Penguin was a bad guy. I wasn't really surprised when that showed up. I guess...
That's in the trailer.
Yeah, okay.
That is in the trailer.
But there are some cast members that I was surprised to see as far as, like, who the actors were, and I'll keep that a little bit, I guess,
ambiguous.
Yeah. So I didn't really know anything about this. I didn't know if it was going to be an origin story or not.
Yeah.
It isn't?
It's not, but this is year 2 Batman.
Yeah.
They talk about how this is...
Hardline that right in the beginning.
Yep, and they talk about that a little bit too. If you've seen anything about this movie, that is not a secret that this is an early Batman. He is a bit younger, and it's very unique. It's a very different Batman story. I think they do... Well, a little bit about, let's say, the kind of plot, the storyline of this movie. You have Batman kind of, what I got from it, trying to kind of figure out where does he place in this society that Gotham is in right now and what it means to be Batman. I will say there's a few themes in this movie that they were trying to kind of hit on, and some of them didn't hit with me personally on a level that I hope that they would. But I do understand what they were trying to go for, trying to put him in this position where...
Yeah, he's kind of edgy teen Batman.
Well,
a little bit.
But I think it's, like in the trailer, he's like, I'm vengeance. And I think it does a good...
Which, by the way, the movie kind of memes on him hard for saying that. Like, every side character's going, okay, vengeance. Like, the entire... 3-hour runtime. They bring that up like fucking.
Well, what I will say, without going too much into it, is I think that they are trying to kind of figure out what does that mean for Batman to be just vengeance as opposed to, I don't know, where are they trying, justice, or what does it mean to be Batman?
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of an interesting thing that they try to juggle. This is a very. The genre of this movie is so much different from any of the other Batman movies, and the fact that they do lean into the world's greatest detective part of this, which I think is interesting.
A good bit.
And
Alfred carries that. So.
No, I think they do. I think they do an interesting.
There's some cool stuff with the detective things that we really hadn't seen. Definitely not in the Christopher Nolan ones. I'm not super well versed on some of the older stuff, like the Val Kilmer, George Clooney, and Michael Keaton ones. I never really watched too many of those, but. Of the live action, in comparison, because I think this is going to get compared to the Nolan trilogy the most.
Probably.
That this one does it more so, I think. I've seen that fairly recently, and they definitely do. He is like doing some detective work through that, but it's not. No, this is straight up like he's with the cops for like the majority of the movie. It feels
and
like
they actually,
and he has a weird relationship with them, but it's kind of it's way more open than other movies. Like Nolan's, it's usually in Batman Interpretations, he talks to Commissioner Gordon, but then he is like, if any other cop sees him, they usually try to stop him. It's like he's a criminal vigilante guy. But in this, it's like, I don't know, they're a lot closer. He's pretty early on. Like, there's that trailer scene where he's at a crime scene as Batman with
which
cops.
I think is really cool.
And that's like right off the rip.
Right, and not to go into detail about exactly how that scene plays out, but like you see a lot of the dynamics between him and, the cops and the detectives and his role in that and what they view of him, which I think is cool. So yeah, obviously, we know the main villain is the Riddler, and he does a lot of questioning of kind of it. I think it puts Batman in a position of questioning what is he doing and what is his place, because they have this view of Gotham and how to fix things, but they go about it very differently.
Right.
So yeah, that's interesting. And as far as like the characters go, I really like the relationship that they built up with Batman and Commissioner Gordon in this. Mm-hmm. They have a lot more to do together. Yeah,
it's a big partnership. I would say I'm with you pretty much on that I also kind of enjoyed that there. It felt different. It's not necessarily so much of the back and forth kind of Gordon versus Batman. They seem to be pretty on the same page. Yeah. A lot of times I think in Batman media, like Gordon is a lot more like he doesn't care. He'll shoot people.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't, that, and they kind of have a bit of they butt heads on like how exactly to do crime, because like Gordon's just a straight up like, you're bad, you go to jail, but if you try anything, I'm going to shoot you in the head. Especially like in runs or in animated stuff that I've seen, because I've seen a lot of my favorite Batman stuff is the animated movies.
There's a lot more nuance between them in this, and I think that's kind of cool. But like I said, going back again to the whole genre of this, it's like this.
I wouldn't say there's a lot more nuance in this than there is in a lot of the other media with Gordon. I think actually it's probably the opposite, but it's kind of fun that they don't have to dwell on that like they always kind of do.
Yeah.
They just go, they're good, they're working together, they're kind of buds.
Well, I will say something I did see from somebody else who saw this movie early, a reviewer. They mentioned that in this movie, there is a lot more of them kind of working together with stuff instead of him calling on Batman. They have maybe a couple interesting conversations, but then Batman goes and does Gordon's work.
Right.
Whereas that's different in this movie.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, they're often together a lot more in action.
Yeah, and I will say that, again, going back again to the genre of this, it's very like almost like murder mystery noir style, dark,
noir.
edgy, where they try to let the cinematography speak for itself in that style.
The aesthetic of this movie is definitely like the best part. I think.
Yeah.
I if anybody watches this, I think they have struggled here. Like how it's filmed, the cinematography, and honestly the set design and the environments that they're in are really cool and really well done. Every like crime scene and like Wayne Manor and the Batcave and all this kind of stuff has a really unique look to it. It's really well detailed and interesting. It's like, you know what I mean? Like even some of the stuff where they're like in the underworld kind of aspect of Gotham and like club scenes and stuff like that feels really different and weird. And I don't know. I really liked all that.
Yeah. And the character interplay, where as far as like having, like we said, Penguin's in this, we know Riddler's in this, we knew all that. But it's how are you going to fold all these in? I will say they did all make sense in the way they were used as far as to progress the story. But what I will say too is, to me, this film is 3 hours long, and it gives you a lot for like 3 hours. But at the same time, because of them trying to allow the cinematography kind of speak for itself with the style and stuff, there were moments where I felt it was a little much, in that there were quite a few scenes that lasted a lot longer than I felt like they needed to.
Oh, there's like a middle hour that's complete fluff for me.
Yeah.
I don't think there's like a whole bit in the middle that I think is completely useless.
I will say this movie felt like it should have been shorter.
Like, Riddler's your main bad guy, and you have a couple little side villains that are involved, and they play important roles. But there's like a middle portion where you kind of forget Riddler, and you start focusing on all this other stuff, and you're kind of like, what are we doing?
Well, I think there was a lot they were trying to put in, and there were certain aspects and elements between certain characters. I would have liked to see Bruce Wayne and Alfred do a lot more things together, but they were trying to put that in with some other things. But the story they wanted to tell with Riddler was this convoluted mystery, which I thought was cool, but because that took so long to do, because there's so many elements when they put
steps upon steps,
and when they try to put other things in there, it felt like those other things weren't as fleshed out as I would have liked them to be.
Yeah.
So there was a lot going on,
and it also makes the plot feel a little convoluted, right? Like there are so many steps and so many things involved. It's a little ridiculous, right? At that point where you have like Riddler's plan is like this 18-step monstrosity of a thing that like
there was a lot of cool stuff, but
it kind of makes sense because Riddler should have this ridiculous 18-step plan, right? And that's kind of his character. It's honestly kind of funny because this one at least is trying to be the most grounded Batman like ever. Like I think Nolan usually gets that like kind of attribute, but this one's really trying to be like a super grounded Batman, at least like with the tone of it. But then they chose like two of the most goofy Batman villains you could find, the Penguin and the Riddler, but they try to make them not goofy, which largely worked. Although why is he the Penguin? That's what I was saying. Like he's just the Penguin because he's kind of weird looking, but the Riddler does riddle, so that checks out.
He does. And I actually,
let's get to hard opinions.
Well, let me say, well, I am getting to opinions, but it's as far as like some of the stuff I did really like about it was I really like the Riddler. You kind of get this idea, like I said earlier, where Batman and Riddler have these ideas about the city, but that they share similar viewpoints, but they're doing it in two different ways, and you can see that conflict there. but everything leading up to that, there was a lot of slow moments, and I felt like this movie, in my opinion, was too long, which I said. So and I'm wondering if that's a subjective thing, because there are some people who I have already seen this movie as well, some reviewers who are Batman fans, so I don't want to say it's just because they're biased, but they like this movie for a lot of reasons. But to me, it was just like, there were definitely moments where I was like, man, we are still going.
I want to say that Paul Dano is a talented actor.
Yeah.
And he can play a villain even though he's very unassuming looking.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never seen There Will Be Blood, you know what I'm talking about. I do not like the Riddler.
Interesting.
I think he's doing a very serial killer thing. But I think that the serial killer aspect is all flash and no real substance to it, because we don't really know much about the character throughout the entire runtime. He has like an opinion that he does, and he kind of starts to fall apart towards the end. And it really just feels like they're going for the serial killer aesthetic, but with none of the substance behind it. And honestly, a lot of the stuff that they do just feels overdone. In the beginning, it was kind of still ambiguous, so I was a little bit on board, but really towards the end, I was like, no. Yeah, I feel like I'm getting flack for this. I didn't really like a lot of the performances in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, they have a lot to live up to, because, everything's going to compare to the Christopher Nolan, like, Batman, and I feel like the cast for this is a little weird in general. I don't know. I still am undecided about Robert Pattinson as Batman, to be honest.
Here's the thing for me, kind of piggybacking off of that.
Even though I like him, I do like Robert.
A lot of talented people in this thing. I think because of the way that they had this, like we said, kind of convoluted plot, where it's one thing to the next, murder mystery kind of style, and they're doing the same thing of trying to find this next clue kind of essence. Right. They're stuck in that, so maybe they give similar performances throughout that, so you don't see as much dynamic range from the characters as I would have liked. I think that's what it is for me. And because of the scenes that were stretched out, because they wanted to make it look cinematic and cool, which they did, I felt like they were leaning into that a little too much. Like, the first time we see the Batmobile went on for way too long. I'm like,
an action sequence.
Well, no, there was no action happening. It was like, oh my goodness, reveal of Batmobile. And then it was like, reveal of Batmobile, but that reveal lasted for so long, and there were a few specific moments, but I'm not going to go into all of them, that similar things like that happen, and some people might really like that subjectively, of like this cinematic essence that's just serving the style, whereas I maybe was looking for something different, and that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I honestly, I do think the style, like how everything looked, including the Batmobile, since it is different and everything like that, like that's all the best part for me of this movie, which isn't necessarily a great thing, but like the way everything it looks, except I'm not sold on the Batsuit. It's a little weird. The Batsuit's so hard to do right.
I love the Batsuit.
The head thing is just bulby. It's got the weird bulby head.
Yeah.
With the little ears. It's that part. The chest down basically bit. Although, okay, little thing bothered the fuck out of me, and I'm curious if you noticed this. You can hear the rubber of his suit flexing throughout the entire movie. He'll turn and you hear that, like I'm trying to do the rubber noise, but it's like, man, I guess yes, it is a rubber suit, and it would make the leathery constricting noise. Yeah. Constantly, but man, it's distracting, and it really reminds you, this is a guy in a leather suit. Like, I don't know, I almost feel like when it's live action, it needs to kind of convince the audience that what he's doing isn't so ridiculous, because it is. Like, when it's animated and you're watching him run around in the bat suit, like, it's okay, it's animated. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, when it's live action, you have to use darkness and like other aspects to like kind of not remind everybody that he is just a weirdo in a big weird suit standing amongst everybody and using a deep voice. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
but part of that weirdness, I think, in this movie does a good job at kind of pointing that out a little bit.
You can point it out all you want to, but the only thing that does to me as the audience is make you go, yeah, he really is just weird. Like, another part that adds to that is we don't get any setup as far as like his whole origin is inferred by us, right? Yeah. We know, okay, parents must have died at some point, and they talk about it a little bit, but like we don't get any of the setup. Like, we don't know his relationship with bats themselves. Yeah. Like, why did Robert Pattinson's Batman choose the bats? Like, that whole
maybe they're going the Spider-Man route, like where they didn't want to show an origin again, so it's more of the deep character of like, where do you fit in after you're there? I don't know. I think we're getting a lot into like details.
Yeah, that's pretty detailed. But it all kind of wraps into together that I really think that this movie is style over substance. Gotcha. That is my big critique and my big overall point. and so it is a little lackluster for me. And if it were an hour and 45 minutes, I think I would have left that going, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's 2 hours and 55 minutes. So I looked at my phone and checked the time. Unfortunately, it's way too long, and it's just way too style over substance, and there's some weird dialogue writing too.
I know how I feel about it as far as like, for me, I was just like, it was okay. I didn't think it was like incredible, and I'm trying to figure out, and I think this is something, not trying to take cheap way out here, but something that I need to wait and see what other people think about this, because not to change how I feel, I can still have my opinion, but to know whether it's subjective. If it's like, did I just not like this style of like this slower pace?
Yeah, I don't know, but for me, I felt style over substance, and it was just too long and just wasn't gripped by it as much as I wanted to be. But a lot of these shots and a lot of the world of it, I really, really loved looking at.
Yeah. And I will say, like I said, I mean, I know there are some Batman fans out there that have seen this and they really like it, and I've heard some good things about this, but I am very curious what people are going to think.
Yeah, I'm curious about like how well it does general audience stuff, because I don't think this is a movie that like most people are going to grasp onto. I think it's too long, a little too weird, and I don't know. I don't see this being like a big blockbuster that like everyone raves about for a couple weeks and then we move on. I don't even know if this will get a sequel. Yeah. I have no idea.
I guess we'll see. That is our very rough, very raw first reactions and thoughts coming out of this. Interested to see what you guys think. If you guys want to go watch Batman, I would say if you're a Batman fan, go watch this, mainly because I want to know your opinion on it.
Yeah. And we'll be doing a full breakdown podcast,
full spoilers,
that will come out when this movie comes out, I guess.
Yeah, like day this comes out.
Friday.
I mean,
probably Friday.
Link will be in the description of this video. Go listen to the hour or longer podcast episode of us talking full spoilers and really getting into the nitty gritty of it. We already went kind of lengthy for this video, but check it out. And Batman.
Yeah, Batman. What was that?
I don't know, bro. I'm trying to wrap it up.
Wow.